Can you speak more about? I know you do some stuff regarding art, and there's some work you've been trying to do as far as preserving the culture of Black people, and that's one of the ways that we're talking about reparations. We talk about it financially. We talk about the economics, but you mentioned even art as a
Yeah.
way of reparations.
So one of the conferences that we put on a couple of conferences in Kenya also, and we have another one coming up in December in Mombasa. And the three topics of the conference are um, climate change and addressing the impact of climate change on people of African descent, civil governance, so making sure our countries operate the way they need to operate, and then the third is reparations. And that reparations comes in many forms, but one of the things that we've been focusing on in the context, because we work with the National Museums of Kenya, is the return of artifacts. Um, and this is a very interesting time. I mean, the Benin bronze being returned is something that we're hearing about more recently. But here's a question. I have a trivia question for you all.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
See if y'all can answer this.
Ooh.
Do you know the reason why we don't see a lot of mummies around
Oh,
now?
they were. So I have two answers. I
Mhm.
think one of them, based on what I remember, I think it's a mixture of like tomb, like grave robbing, and they were eaten. I want to say,
Absolutely, you
yeah.
got it. Boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom.
yeah.
So
I didn't because you told me that already, so I ain't wanna. I ain't
yeah,
wanna cheat.
so I mean, the Europeans ground up our ancestors and ate them because they thought it was medicine. I mean, I think we need to sit with that for a
They
moment.
thought did they know they were human beings? Though?
Yeah, yeah. They ground them up and they said, well, they knew because
I
despite
really
what they tell us about what they try and portray about us, they knew that we were the ones that were advanced in science and medicine. So they said
Yeah.
they must know something we don't know. That they're able to preserve their ancestors for thousands of years. We can't do that. So there must be some magic in them. And so you look at some of the medicine books from Europe, and they're like, 2 teaspoons of ground, you know.
Oh my god.
And so I
That's
say,
insanity.
yeah, yeah. So when we talk about savages and cannibalism and all that stuff, like we really have to get the history straight. But I say that to say part of the dialogue around why these European countries and the United States don't want to return the artifacts is because they say that African people we don't have the ability to care for them. And I'm like, we're not grounding up our ancestors. So, I mean, I think we have to be, once we know our history, we can combat some of the narratives that are out there.
Yeah.
And so culture, culture is life. Like, I mean, you know, can you imagine? I mean, we couldn't even imagine digging up the bones of George Washington and taking them to Nigeria on display. But that's
Yeah.
what we see when we go into museums all over the world. So, yeah, I mean, it can go. We can get really deep if we
No, I
want.
mean, and that's so when you first started talking about getting our artifacts back, the first thing that came to mind was Black Panther.
Mm.
And when I saw him do that, I was like, he's actually not wrong. Because like, what is to stop us from going into a museum and saying, nah, like if this is my tribe, like let's say if you were to go into a museum and say this is a Yoruba artifact, what? Why can't why can't you
Yeah.
just take it? It's yours.
Mhm.
It's literally your property that they
Absolutely.
stole and took over there. I know that I think it was India, some country. They like demanded that the British give them back their stuff,
Yeah.
and they won their artifacts back. And I think that's something that we need to start doing. And back to the conversation about Swahili and languages, I love that it's a thing. My only concern is that, and this is probably just I guess the Afrocentrism in me. My only concern is that if it's a language that's taught to everybody, then they have access to what we're saying and doing, and so it gives them more access to us to
Agreed.
do more
Harm.
harm if they desire, rather than us being
Yeah.
able to speak to one another and do what we need to do to build ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear you on that. Here's my kind of response to it. There is not a direct term in Yoruba for she is having a baby. If someone's having a baby, we say we are having a baby. So if you learn the language, it translates into culture. So if you yes, learn it.
That's
And so when you say
that's a bar.
Wait, say that one more time.
so when you say we are having a baby, that means that we are responsible for the the learning, the protection of this child. And so we can't allow. That's why language is so powerful.
Yeah.
That's why when you call someone a slave versus an enslaved African, those are two different things.
Two different things.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I hear you. And we also will transmit culture and cultural practices and values by learning the language. And that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you. I appreciate that because
It's
that
a
was
different perspective.
that was
but
my
I
thought.
get you.
That was
Makes
definitely
sense.
my thought, and I'm sure somebody else might have been thinking the
No,
same
no,
thing.
yeah,
So
true.
that's
Yeah,
helpful
no, it's good
because
to bring it up.
even last year, was it last year, 2 years ago, Mayor Dickens had his town hall where he was talking about the year of the youth, and he mentioned an African greeting. I don't know if it was Swahili or not, but he said like they say how are the to talk about how they say how are the children, and the response is all the children are well, and the overall idea is that if the children in the village are doing well, then the health of the village is doing well as well. So saying that to say in how we talk and language and things like that, I guess it's in us as Africans to be universal and to be community oriented. So actually learning Swahili for the world might actually bring
I hope so.
generations into the future,
Yeah.
but it might actually bring some settlement and some peace if people were to actually adopt the ideas of it. I'm an
They
idealist in a
won't.
lot of ways. They won't. I'm an
They won't.
idealist. I can be an idealist sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's just a in a
no.
perfect world. But
Never underestimate their
or
ability
they
to
might
flip
even
and-
try to change it to make it fit their
Yeah,
own
no,
stuff. But
Yeah,
you know, we hope for the best.
They'll have Brad Pitt star in the movie.
All right.
Brad Pitt by Swahili.